I am using the recording feature on my laptop, and if there are little stops, for some reason it doesn't seem to be as smooth as the one on my desktop computer, but we'll manage. And I know you're saying, woohoo, I get to see something else besides that same scenery I've been looking at forever. This is the second movie about vampires, and I want to recap a little bit and reiterate that the history of vampires, as are many things within myth, and also things that are handed down in oral tradition as opposed to being written, it's just difficult to trace. But most likely, Lilith and Lamia are precursors of modern vampires, and there are other aspects of myth that we just can't cover because of the brevity of this class that also have to do with blood-sucking vampires. Now remember, vampires weren't always necessarily bloodsuckers, but they might have spread pestilence. And as we are going to see, especially in Eastern Europe, vampires were also called revenants. Now revenants could be along the line of zombies as well. And they were dead people who resurrected, but they were on a little bit more of a personal level than are what we think of as vampires who eat or seek blood in order to stay alive. Revenants were more of the dead who wanted to settle a grudge against somebody who was still living. So maybe it would be a family member or a townsperson who had done them wrong, and they wanted to set it straight. Now the word vampire was not used until 1734, and that is from the Oxford English Dictionary, which is, of course, the Bible of the English-speaking word. And so before that, they were termed other things, and Lilith in her day, or Lamia in her day, would not have been called vampires. But vampire is the most commonly used word now, and has been for a couple of centuries, to talk about those characters of the undead. Now, revenants were most prolific in the Balkans and in Eastern Europe, Transylvania, Romania, and those places. They didn't become popularized into the West until the 18th century. And John Polidori and Lord Byron were two early writers who chronicled vampire tales. And so the vampire evolved. It evolved from those early female figures into male figures especially, and also took on different attributes and aspects as time passed. Now, there is no doubt that Bram Stoker's Dracula is the definitive vampire story. And it set the mode for many vampires that came after, and many people modeled their characters of vampires on Bram Stoker. Now, Bram Stoker modeled his vampire, Count Dracula, on a real person, Vlad Tepes of Romania, Count of Wallachia. And Vlad was not a very nice person. And I'm going to talk more about him later in the rest of the movie and in the PowerPoint that is also available. Also, Dracula means son of dragon. Dracul would have been the dragon. And Vladimir translates as Walter. You know, you can't be afraid of somebody named Walter, but Vladimir has come to denote kind of a sinister connotation. So let's move on and examine some more aspects of the vampire.